Hey friends, welcome and thanks for tuning in to the Heat Press for Profit podcast. Here at Stalls, we always aim for these podcasts and all of our educational content to inspire new ideas for you and to help decorators of all sizes learn, connect, and reach their own success. Be sure to join the community over on our Heat Press for Profit Facebook page. If you're not already a member, and some of you may already be listening from clicking the link here in the Heat Press for Profit Facebook page. But if you are not a member, it's a great community of decorators just like you, willing to help. And it is such a welcoming community, especially if you're just getting started. So be sure to go on over there and request. And the best part is that it is a private group. So if you are running on your business account or your personal account, none of your questions are ever visible to your customers in there. But my name is Dave. I'm from Stalls and Transfer Express. And today I am so excited to be talking with Jesse and Becca Freeby from Corvallis Custom for a conversation about decorating on demand for the collegiate markets and also with name, image, likeness. We see so much more of this popping up and coupled with e-commerce. Jesse, Becca, and the rest of the Corvallis Custom team were recently featured on our Heat Press Transformation series over on the Stalls TV YouTube channel. And if you haven't seen that episode, you need to watch it. It is a great in-depth look into how kind of e-commerce is working, how the name, image, likeness impacts not just Corvallis Custom as a decorator, but the athletes themselves. And we're going to get into a little bit more into that into our conversation here today. But you need to check that episode out if you have not already. I'm going to bring Jesse and Becca in to the Heat Press for Profit studio here. Jesse, Becca, how are you guys doing today?
We're doing great. Thanks for having us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes. And we are so thankful for you guys hanging out with us and letting us come in and disturb the print shop for a couple days to shoot that Heat Press transformation. And it was just such a great in-depth look into kind of the history of your shop and what you guys are doing and the kind of powerful decorating that you're doing that does empower e-commerce and so much more. So before we get into everything, if somebody is brand new, has never seen the Heat Press transformation, hasn't heard of Corvallis Custom, could you introduce both of yourselves and talk a little bit about what Corvallis Custom and the Athlete Zone does?
So I'm Jesse, and this is my wife, Rebecca, and we own Corvallis Custom. So Corvallis Custom started out as actually a student project at Oregon State University. So Corvallis is home to Oregon State University. And we had some t-shirt ideas that we created, and then that really just expanded through word of mouth and good reputation to the local community, and then to actually printing for the university. And then with the NIL ruling in 2021 to printing for athletes, both professional and collegiate.
Like so many print shops, it really is just kind of an organic grassroots story, right? Like the opportunity presented itself and you just start down the path and keep going and land where you land. So it's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you guys had, you now being the, a licensed supplier for Oregon State University, you had a fun kind of origin story back in the beginning too. Would you care to share that one?
Sure. So we definitely check out the Heat Press Transformations video that we did with you guys. There's the longer version in there, but the summary version is our student project was actually for the Civil War game. So that's the rivalry game between the University of Oregon and Oregon State. And so we created a t-shirt, and that year, the winner of that game went to the Rose Bowl. And so it was Battle for the Roses, and it had the OS, Oregon State design at the time, and the Oregon O in it. And we printed a ton of those, like a couple hundred of those t-shirts, and we stuffed them into backpacks, and we drove down to Autzen Stadium, and we were selling them for $20 a piece out of the backpack.
Made a killing.
We sold every single one of them. We thought we were the most savant business students ever. Like we had made more money than most college students make in their entire collegiate career. And when we were selling them, one of the people who was helping us with the t-shirts got stopped. And somebody was like, "Hey, who are you guys? What's going on? What's your business?" And just basically gave them everything. Told them we're students at Oregon State, our business name's Corvallis Custom, we're doing all of these things, and gave them every piece of information that they needed to send us a cease and desist letter. So it turns out that person was worked for one of the universities, and because all collegiate logos are trademarked, you have to have permission from those institutions in order to print them, which we did not. So we flipped that process around. They didn't end up kicking us out of school.
Nice.
And we turned that into a limited provisional license. And that license has expanded over the 15 years that we've been in business now. And so now we run a retail storefront for the university. We do a ton of printing for them, all licensed now.
Man, that is awesome. Awesome. And then you kind of mentioned the name, image, likeness ruling with the Supreme Court and the development of the athlete zone. How did that start to kind of fit into the other aspects of your business? Was that kind of natural to bring on in?
So we were previously restricted everybody in the country was restricted from using anything that had to do with athletes and their marketing because it could be conceived as like an inducement or, paying them totally wasn't allowed. There's some pretty famous cases where, people kind of danced that line and maybe the student lost their eligibility or the university was penalized or bad things happened. And so it was just one of those things where you have this entire demographic of individuals that is prohibited from doing what professional athletes do every single day and benefit from. So when the Supreme Court ruled that you could do this, we already kind of had a model that we could follow as influenced by professional athletes. And so we just approached a couple of athletes initially and said, hey, do you want to try this out? And that was our test case. And that was wildly successful. The athlete that we were working with at the time, BJ Baylor, ended up going to the combine, and one of the shirts that we developed for him and the brand that we developed for him got a ton of national exposure. And then he ended up going pro to Green Bay at the time. And so that got a lot of exposure. And then once you have one athlete that kind of hits it big, other athletes go, why am I not doing this? Yeah. And so that's what really, pushed us over the ledge as far as success in onboarding athletes.
We already had a lot of the framework existing on the e-commerce side, and working to build brands with local businesses was already something that we were doing. We would take one of the unique things about the printing industry is that you can meet a business at inception, right? And take that idea, bring it to life graphically, and then bring it to life tangibly through printed products. So we were already doing a lot of that and had a loose framework for that. And we just tailored it to fit that unique athlete experience. And then with the e-commerce side, again, I don't know that there's a business today that would have survived COVID if they didn't have or rapidly create an e-commerce arm to their business. And so we kind of just worked it into what we had, and then have made adjustments over time to make it a better fit for the needs of that vertical.
That's awesome. Yeah. And definitely one of the huge benefits of being a decorator. I know it's like one of my favorite parts is like making that magic happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, taking it from, hey, this is just more business to like that athletic, the personality kind of side of it is almost a natural fit. You started in 2021 with Athlete Zone, right? How many, and that was, your first athlete, how many athletes do you represent now through the program?
I think we're up to 176. We have some of them who their eligibility is over. So they're still technically under contract with us, but they're not actively promoting their brands.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where the first year snowballed, right? 100% snowballed. The first year, 4 athletes, the next year, 20 athletes. The next year, I think we hit like 60 or 70 athletes. And then it's just been kind of going like this. So
yeah.
We have a great referral. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go for it.
Because we have a great referral program. That was one of JB's great ideas, Jesse's great ideas early on, was that, for each athlete we get, we can teach them how to tell their friends and how to bring those people on and create a small incentive program for that. And the athletes that are savvy see the value of that. They're like, well, I'm doing this anyway. My friends want to do it anyway. This is a win-win. And so that part also made the organic growth really feasible.
Yeah, they all have teammates, right?
Yep.
But you guys, and this is something we kind of spotlighted too, I think, in the episode, but you do so much more than just printing or hosting a web store for these athletes. Could you share a little bit about the kind of efforts that you put forth and the impact it makes for the overall success of the athletes?
Well, so I think one of the core principles of our business is relationships, and it always has been. And so when we were creating this model for like really partnering with the athletes, it was based on how can we make it a win for us and how can we make it a win for the athlete. So unlike some of our competitors who are in the same sphere, what we do is we partner with the athlete. So for every dollar they make in profit, we also make $1. And that way it's not like you have athletes that are feeling like, wow, you sold like a $50 t-shirt and I made like $2 or $3. And we are 100% transparent with the athlete. So they have a dashboard that we custom created where they can log in and they can see the sales of their products. They can see the traffic to their web store in real time. And then they can also, for compliance side of things, they can track commissions. They can track, the royalties and the sales, and then it also will generate a W-4 form every single year. And then also that's where we upload all of the media content that they would need to be successful in marketing their brand. So that partnership approach is one that I think really sets us apart for some of the competitors that we have in the industry, because we succeed when our athletes succeed.
Yeah, we've really set it up to almost be a sort of business mentorship in addition to brand building and marketing, that we want them to enter this space that they're in, right, which is a business at this point, and feel that there is not just financial transparency, but also transparency in shared goals, teaching them what they need to know to not be taken advantage of, or to not find themselves in predatory positions once they're no longer, if they move on from Athlete Zone, when they move on from college. We want them to take something away from this that will serve them later on down the line, beyond athletics. And that's really important to us, because there's lots of us out there printing shirts, but there aren't enough people investing in those long-term educational opportunities and relationships.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, when you talk about it being like a business, it's a brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think in the name, image, likeness space, like there are maybe more regulations than typical brands might kind of encounter. I mean, I know that you guys stress the importance of it, and that's one of the success kind of points for these athletes coming through, is making sure they stay compliant with the regulations. How do you kind of protect that or keep that on guide rails? Do you pretty much own all of that for the athletes to ensure that they're not going to lose eligibility in any way?
So that is one of the things that we 100% tackle as part of our agreement. There are things that the athlete can do that would jeopardize their eligibility. And then a lot of it has to do, again, with that disclosure and transparency. So if an athlete can't account for money that came into them, that's a problem, both at the university level and at the NCAA level. And then some additional universities have taken that a step farther, where the athlete has to have certain aspects that are incorporated into their agreements in order to meet the university requirements. So it's a little bit of a juggling act between what do we know, the rules that apply to everybody, and what rules apply to specific universities, and then making sure that the athletes understand that, as well as the university understands our role in that. And so in the first couple of years, it was a little bit the Wild West, where that was changing every 5 minutes. So I think we're on version 14 of our contract, which is just as we've amended it over time. And then universities also didn't have programs for educating these athletes on how to avoid scams. At the end of the day, you're dealing with 18-year-old to 22-year-old kids, right? And so if you are a business that's working with them, you kind of have a duty to make sure that they're not being taken advantage of. And unfortunately, that's not an ethos that expands to everybody in our industry. So we have some athletes who have horror stories prior to coming to us, where they did everything that was asked of them, and then were, in my opinion, taken advantage of. So
yeah, or somebody else drops that ball.
Yes, 100%.
What advice would you give to a decorator looking to get into name, image, likeness to make sure to do it the right way?
I would say, I think the biggest thing for us was approaching it with at the outset with the heart of a learner. And then once you feel like you've taken in enough information, then approaching it with the heart of a teacher. So wanting to really impart the valuable knowledge that you have onto the athlete. If you build your base from there, you're really good. I think from a logistical standpoint, having the framework, our partnership with Stalls was critical. We invested in some equipment right at the jump that made a huge difference. And I think that our ability to meet the needs of our athletes would have been very different without that. So I think information and technology are the two big things that are going to get you started on the right path.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
Just like any other customer that you may be working with, right? Like, you have to understand what the scope of the project is. So if you go into NIL like you are, treating it completely separate, you're going to fail. And the reason why is because, just like a customer walking in off the street being like, I have a landscaping company, I need 15 t-shirts. You're not just going to call them next Thursday and be like, come pick up your t-shirts. There's a process to that, right? Like, what does the athlete want to get out of this? Does the athlete approve the design? The additional components of that are, now does the university approve the design, right? And so as long as there's really good communication between all parties involved in the university, and to some extent the NCAA are aspects of that, you can absolutely be successful in this industry. But if you try to kind of cut corners, or if you don't understand how the inner workings work, then you're potentially setting some people up for some failures that might be problematic,
including yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's definitely something that you wouldn't want to do, because then it doesn't benefit anybody in that situation. It doesn't benefit the relationship that you've built with the athlete, the school even. And yeah, it's not going to be beneficial for you in the long run. And I love that aspect of kind of be the student and then be the teacher and kind of help lift everybody up. I think that's why I like you guys so much.
We ride together, right? I mean, if you have a shared goal like that, I think in our industry, there's a really fine balance between like not being so afraid that you'd never take a risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then also being prepared for where that risk might take you. Like you need to take a prepared risk, if you will.
Yes.
And that preparation piece, I think, is what will really serve you in the long run.
Oh yeah. And so I'm going to back up a little bit, because you talked about like some of the investments that you made as a business, obviously for like shifting to that e-commerce kind of print on demand model. How has kind of the NIL opportunities changed the way that you operate? Because you were primarily like a bulk print shop prior to name, image, likeness. So could you share a little bit about how that transformed at least maybe your production space or the staffing that you had to put forth to support it?
So I can tackle that from a production standpoint. So we had run e-commerce stores for the last couple of years, mostly for the university. And our model was we would actually burn a physical screen. We would have that screen sitting on a shelf somewhere. And then when an item sold on our website, we,
hold the screen,
throw it out, align it, slam out one t-shirt, and then ship it out in the mail. So if you look at the cost of a t-shirt versus the cost of labor versus the cost of the blank garment, all of your holding costs and stuff like that, there's not a huge margin there. And when you're also paying a commission to the university, right, for the use of their license, and then when you add the royalty, which is 50% of your profit, to the athlete, the margins get very, very skinny very quickly. And ultimately, again, we're looking to provide value not only to our company, but to our customers. And so if you're like, hey, athlete, we sold the t-shirt, but we only made 50 cents a piece on it, they're probably not going to be thrilled with that. And so one of the big shifts that we made is how do we improve that process, right? And so the easy way to do that was using transfers. We have an approved logo. We have items on the website. We know what the design's going to be, but we don't actually have to pre-print a ton of that apparel and then hold printed stuff like a retail store. So shifting from that retail mindset to an on-demand mindset where all of these, we could fit 500 designs in a filing cabinet in the corner of our warehouse. And then when something gets ordered, you just go through it, you find the design that you need, and then you stamp it on the t-shirt. And that process is not only way more cost effective, but it's quicker for the customer. So it took our turn time on screen printing from 7 to 10 days down to we can usually ship things out within 3 days, 5 if there's a weekend. So we're following the Amazon model side of things. We've decreased our costs. And then one of the ways that we've done that is by using transfers, by using patches, by using the heat presses, right? Because
the heat press is the one I was gonna say has been super transformative. We were using an older clamshell, and it had been needing to be replaced for a while. And then when we did that, we were like, oh, game changer. So I mean, we have a lot of love for the machines that built our business, but we have a lot more love for the machines that are going to move us to the next phase. And that, I think, the equipment investment, I was going to say, was the big thing, because as we move to that on-demand fulfillment model, we realized that the equipment we had that was sufficient for what we were doing before was no longer meeting our needs. And so making that change after, we got the transfers and then realized we needed a better equipment in order to still keep up with the demand. So the transfer met the need for the graphics, and then the equipment met the need for the volume.
That's awesome. Yeah. And we see a lot of decorators kind of leveraging more heat printing for that on demand because of that low cost, that accessibility. And then, when you're sharing in the successes with your athletes too, there's extra to share. There's, you're not investing in, I think the traditional way of doing the e-commerce and print on demand was with a direct to garment printer, right? And like the hassles and the maintenance and the sheer cost involved with a lot of that, let alone the printing capabilities that I feel like are, while direct to garment still has its place in the industry, like its capabilities are limited to the garments that it could be printing on. So you're able to kind of open it up wide and print on a whole bunch of different stuff. Now, shifting from, say, that screen print, model to a heat transfer, did you get any like pushback? Is there any like common myths that you find yourself having to debunk, or like to tell the customers this is going to be the way to go?
Yeah, I hear them a lot. I do a lot of our customer facing conversations, and a lot of the myths that I was hearing, I know with DTG specifically, our fulfillment is DTF based. So we never did, we dabbled in DTG, didn't love it. And I think a lot of customers had similar experiences where they were like, this is going to be faded. It leaves stains, it's inconsistent from one product to the next.
Quality variation.
Yeah, quality variation was the big one. And so we've really enjoyed being able to tell people, hey, this is a marriage between screen print technology and heat press flexibility. Like you get the longevity of screen printing with all of the graphic flexibility of the heat press technology. A lot of folks also have vinyl still in their mind. With heat press technology, they think of vinyl, and vinyl has its place. It still does great things, but I think one of the big misconceptions I push back on is that we don't have the ability to do that fine detail work and things like that. And that is, I'm delighted to be able to tell them that's not a limitation of this technology, because I also didn't like it. So.
Yeah. And especially, I think, coming from like screen printing too, when you talk about all those endless colors, the stuff that you're not going to do. But Jesse, you had something to add there?
Well, so our industry is a very technical industry, right? So a lot of times when we're explaining things to customers, we're trying to convert that abundance of knowledge into terms that they'll understand. And so if you're like, oh yeah, this is how DTF works, and this is how pre-treat works, and this is how the types of garments we could do and the variants that your customer is going to get so lost, and that's just going to confuse them, right? And so when we dumb that down to, we do digital printing, or we do heat transfer, there's a lot of associations based on what that technology was 10 years ago,
what it used to be.
And so one of the things that we use is we go like, this is basically like a liquid screen print, right? Like it's pigment in the ink, it's an adhesive, like here's the actual feel, having samples that the customers can see. And that's the big game changer. I mean, there's things that you can do to a print to make it have a softer feel as well, but like just having something that they can touch and they go, oh wow, this isn't like it feels like a piece of cardboard or sticker on the outside of it. Like this is totally good. And then there's no problem with digital printing. There's no problem with the heat transfer side of things. So it's just, kind of explaining it in a way that the customer can relate to it, but also not have those negative connotations that historically heat transfer has.
Yeah. And I think you touched on a little bit, like it's the equipment too that allows you not only to keep up with the demand, but also ensure a quality application. Because we see that a lot from, heat transfers, they peel up. When not applied properly, they do. It's just like when you're screen printing and you don't put it down the dryer at the right temperature.
You don't cure it doesn't cure.
It's gonna crack, right? It all comes down to the right application on that. So you kind of talked a little bit about the investment of a heat press, but I was interested to see if there's any improvement practice or like a single piece of equipment or equipments that made the largest impact on the growth of the business.
So we talked about some of the things that we've done to improve, and one of those is in like the processes that you manage, right? Like, are your processes efficient to get the end result? And the other component of that are the components of that process as honed as they could be. So one of the things that Becca talked about is, like, we had a hat press that we never successfully used. We paid a couple, $1,000 for it and just could never get the quality that, we wanted to represent our brand. And the clamshell that we had functioned as a heat press, but as the technology evolves, you spend 20 minutes aligning things, and then not 20 minutes, but you spend some time aligning it, and then you press it, and then you have to peel it up and make sure it doesn't peel, right? So those things add time to it. One of the cool things with switching over to the Stalls presses is everything's pre-programmed. So one, that saves you a ton of time because exactly 15-second pre-press, 20-second or 3-second pre-press, 15-second post-pressed. And then you also know that it's going to be a consistent product moving forward.
Yes.
So the first, item is identical to the second item. And so then moving to the ProPlace IQ and like the dual station machine is just another furtherance of that, right? So we went from having the single Stalls clamshell, which had that pre-programmed ability. That was a huge improvement to our process. And now we've taken that and we've duplicated it to the dual machine, right? And so that again is that we're just going tiers of efficiency. Sorry, you can't see that hand. We're going tiers of efficiency higher. I'm doing a lot of stuff over here that you can't see. But that's all improvements to your business, right? You can't make people work twice as fast if you don't have the technology to support that. without cutting corners or losing quality.
Yeah,
And for us, we don't lose quality, right? There's a ton of printers out there in the world who are doing DTG still. And if you've ever ordered a t-shirt off of Amazon, you know what I'm talking about when it comes to the quality of that. And so if you really want to be able to balance the value that you're giving to your customers, NIL or otherwise, the Stalls presses are an excellent way to keep that value super high and also keep your costs low because of the efficiency they provide.
And we were using those presses long before, we ever started really honing in on some of those other factors. Like, we saw the value of it actually at Long Beach, and jumped in, and they kind of started. It was like almost the cart before the horse. Like, we were like, all right, we obviously need this, and then the other things started coming too. So I do think that having a plan for how to best utilize the equipment is a big piece of it. You can have the best screen printing equipment in the world, and if you don't have an operator who knows how to work it, it's not going to do you any good. And so you have to do it all together.
Yeah. And especially and you guys have probably felt the challenges of growing, especially, maintaining starting with a stable of one athlete and then growing to almost 200, right? Like, and it's just going to continue to grow on that. And I think that you touched exactly on it, of like, you could be as efficient as you want and you could be as quick as you want, but you're not being effective if you're not getting the quality, or you're misprinting shirts with misalignment. Just not getting that quality of what your customers are expecting, especially when you're representing an athlete as their own brand too. I mean, it is, don't get me wrong, very mega important for the local businesses and brands, but as an athlete, especially a young athlete, is trying to build awareness about themselves and their own brand, it becomes so important. And so when we talk about kind of some of those growing pains, is there any specific setbacks or challenges that you encountered growing the business over the past decade plus that still stands with you and still is kind of like a lesson that you carry with you today?
Great question. Yeah.
So again, I'm all about processes, right? So I would say to anybody that's watching, as your business grows and scales, your processes, if they're inefficient or overly costly processes, will scale proportionate to that, right? So you can make mistakes very quickly at a larger scale that otherwise would have been easy to fix at a smaller scale. So the time that you spend right now should be in investing in that good equipment, is investing in that process, because you're setting yourself up for that scalability. And then when you do scale, you've already solved that problem on a micro level, instead of it becoming something that is potentially tens of thousands of dollars, right? Messing up one t-shirt costs you $4 in your time. Messing up 400 t-shirts, that's a painful month.
Yeah, it hurts. That hurts a little bit.
It's the difference between efficient versus effective, right? So you can efficiently print 35 prints on the wrong sleeve, right? And the effectivity of that would be doing 25 prints on the correct sleeve in the same amount of time. And circling back to the equipment piece, that projection technology, which you're going to have to remind me of the exact name of it, but ProPlace IQ. Thank you. It projects the image down. So as long as you upload the right image, it's going to give you perfect placement and perfect sizing and centered and alignment. And that piece of it is really helpful.
That's good advice. That was great advice. I think that answered a question I had on the list even farther up, of like, what's the best advice that you would give to a decorator looking to grow their business? Be
effective, not efficient.
Yes, and focus on those processes. And I know a lot of people, like myself included, got into decorating from the creative aspect of it. And so like those processes, that organizational efficiency is definitely, for many decorators that I still talk to today, kind of like an afterthought. And it's so great to hear that being like championed as this. Think about it now, because it's easier to fix now than when you're at scale, and definitely makes everybody wants to grow and scale their business, and future proofing your business for that. I think has probably attributed to a lot of your success, especially in this like just huge exponential rise of how you're harnessing that e-commerce and the NIL and the online stores and stuff as well.
Yeah, those rises really are going to put a magnifying glass, right? So anything that you were maybe not quite solid on when you're doing it once, it's going to become a much bigger pain point when you're doing it 1,000 times. And so being able to, like we said, honing in on those small details that feel kind of like, this is unnecessary. It might be unnecessary where you are now, but it's not unnecessary where you're going.
Yeah, that's a great, that's the quote right there. Boom, mark it. We'll put that one in. So having been in the decorating space for a while, both interacting, with local businesses, growing brands, do you, this will be, I want a two-part on this. I want to hear both of your inputs. What is your absolute favorite part of being a apparel decorator or a business owner?
Ooh. I mean, I know for me, my favorite part, like I said, I do a lot of our customer facing work. I really love that partnership piece. So being able to build relationships within our community, see a need and meet a need with a tangible product in your hands, like that nonprofit that wants to give jerseys to their soccer team. Maybe there's some underprivileged youth on there who wouldn't otherwise have opportunities to play soccer if they had to buy their own uniforms. Like we can say, I got you. Like you can step into that space and just come alongside those people. Like that really fills my cup. And I love being able to flex in and out of different roles and try new things and see where we find our best success. Those two things give me a lot of excitement in my work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So mine is probably a surprise to no one, right? Is very similar to Becca's. I think the vanity response is it's really cool to be going around your community and being like, I printed that, I printed that.
That is really fun.
That's super fun. But if you turn that into like a tangible, like what really drives us to continue doing this every single day is the impact that we can make, right? And so Becca talked a little bit about the impact. We donate a not insignificant amount of money every year to scholarships for students. So that way, if you have a kid that like wants to play t-ball or wants to play football or something like that, but can't financially afford it, we'll just cover that. They have an anonymous scholarship that supports them because then they're going to be, included in something like that. So that's kind of like a heartstring pull for me. And then the other component of that is we work with a lot of business to business as well and other brands, and being a part of that growth, being a part of that success is really meaningful to me. So, seeing a brand new boutique that opens up that has never, done business before. They have this awesome idea, but they just need help with the visual marketing of it, right? Like getting their brand out there, putting a graphic on the window, or doing something like that. And we're experts at that, right? So being able to be like, okay, don't worry, we've got you. Here's how you do it. And then a year later or 2 years later, you have this thriving business in your community. And even though that hard work was put in by that entrepreneur, you had a part in that. And so that's a really fulfilling thing for me.
To be a part of the story, right? And I think any decorator listening to this conversation can relate to like that look of excitement on someone's face when they see their logo in person for the first time. Like it's very cool to be able to like be a part of the conception of someone's business and like, be there at the grand openings and share just that tiny spot in their story. And then those relationships will last. They will remember that you cared about getting it right. And they'll remember that you followed up with them to see how their first year of business went and sent them a congratulation card on surviving 12 months of small business ownership, right? I think those things are they're priceless. And it's the best part about particularly doing business in small towns, but in cities of any size, honestly.
Yeah, I'm huge on community, and that is the culture you have of like building a community. I think the world needs more people like you guys. So everybody listen to this podcast and take a lot of this advice because it's so enlightening to hear. Because I mean, like it is this like super global national kind of economy that we live in, right? And everybody's price shopping for the lowest price, but to be able to provide those services and give value more than just decorated products to businesses in your local community, to the schools, to the educators, to the students in your local community makes such a huge difference. And I mean, that's something too, like when we talk to so many decorators just getting started out, they don't know where to look. And it's like, look in your backyard, look right here, right? This is going to be your people. This is your tribe already. Like start here. It's your friends, it's your family, it's your neighbors. And then, just from like word of mouth, it grows from that. Because have you guys, for growing the brand over a span of time, obviously working with the university is such a great opportunity to have. But have you spent a lot of marketing spend on marketing Corvallis Custom or Athlete Zone, or is it mostly word of mouth?
We sponsor a ton of community things. So pretty much any nonprofit in town, if they have a fundraiser or they have a banquet or they have something like that, we're a sponsor of that just because we want to reinvest in those causes in our community. Same thing for kids sports. So as far as our branding, it's definitely getting out of there through those sponsorships. One of the things that we learned early on, and again, so December 1st, we started our 15th year of business, which we're very proud of. So talking to any podcast listeners or watchers that maybe don't have that experience, one of the things that we learned early on was it costs you a lot more to find a new customer than to keep an existing one. And we have hundreds of customers that when we started working with them, they were like solopreneurs or like working out of their garage or doing something. And in some cases, they have multi-million-dollar businesses now. And so if you build that relationship, if you add that value to aspiring people, just like you're aspiring to grow, right? I think compared to some people in the industry, I'm still a small business. And if you invest in people that have that same mindset and help them grow, you can grow together. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the reasons why we really appreciate the relationship with you guys, because you also invest in the businesses that you work with, us being one of them.
Big or small, everybody lends value. Everyone can find that person that's in front of them and make a difference. Yep. And I think that's, even a pebble makes a wave, right? Like it doesn't have to be global shifting behaviors. You can just make that change that's in front of you today.
Mm-hmm. We are all better together than individuals, right?
Yes.
So we're getting a little near our time frame here. So if anybody listening live with us has any questions for Jesse and Becca, be sure to drop them into the comments, regardless of where you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, LinkedIn or Instagram. We get all of the comments in real time right here in the studio. And I'd love to cover any of those. And as we wait for some of those questions to come in, I do want to say just how refreshing it is to, as a marketer myself, right? Like, I think it's so refreshing to see that your marketing spend is going towards both your brand awareness, but like good. It's helping people, even if it's not converting. And like that's so phenomenal, right? I love it, love it, love it. But how do you both see kind of the future for Corvallis Custom and the Athlete Zone, and maybe what the next you just said you're coming up on, or we just hit 15 years. What does the next 5, 10, or 15 years look like for you guys?
I think on the Corvallis Custom side, we are looking forward to continued community partnerships. We'd love to continue to increase our ability to serve larger communities and more national communities. We do that now. It's just more limited. And continuing to reach out to those up and coming businesses. I'd love to get involved somehow in some sort of collaborative community building space that with our business at the core, but also centering other businesses and their needs and kind of creating this collaborative co-working space would be my big vision, but I'd have no idea how to make that happen. So stay tuned.
And then with the Athlete Zone side of things, I mean, the best plans very frequently very, very infrequently are what is actually implemented. And so a lot of that hinges on what the NCAA is going to do with NIL. I'm sure if you've opened any sporting app in the last 3 months, there's probably 15 articles about how things have changed. Mm-hmm. So we are going to just kind of dig in and continue to grow and continue to provide value to those athletes in whatever way that looks like. I mean, ultimately, we're getting relationships with people and individuals that we care for, and we want them to be successful, and they hopefully want us to be successful as well. And so I think if we just kind of stick together there, that has historically served us pretty well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, can't wait for the future plans. Did you ever think when you first started it as that, kind of college program, student-led initiative, you're selling T-shirts out of backpacks, that you thought 15 years from then that you would be where you are now?
No.
I think you dream about that, right? And then you get lost in the day-to-day. And then when you have moments to reflect upon it, you were like, man, my business has like 10x or 15x in that period of time. And you didn't realize that it was happening until you actually took that moment of pause to go like, yeah, this, we've done something kind of cool here. So we're very proud of the business that we have. This is kind of what we had hoped for. And then the same thing, we have hopes for the future, right? So
I think, alongside like those favorite parts of being in business, right? You have those least favorite parts. And I think like it's really important to reflect on your failures as well as your successes. Nobody is immune to failure. Like we've spent a lot of time today talking about what has gone well and what has gone right, and very little time talking about the very, very long list of things that did not go well. So if you're in that space of not feeling, oh, success is so far away, it's not. Success is built on the lessons you learn from the things that don't go right, and being able to lean into that with a growth mindset and an abundance mindset. There are some amazing books that can help break that down into more bite-sized pieces that we will not have time for today. But don't be discouraged, because those bad days everybody has them. Those bad months, those bad years. I mean, we've had bad years.
I think there's a question from Jacob that's on there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we see this one. Any advice for just starting out, which is great. We see so many decorators just getting in the industry now. What's that advice for just starting out? If you were to do it all over again, would you do anything differently, or how would you do it today?
So one of the lessons that we learned, and again, it took 15 years, and we've implemented it in Athletes Zone, we've implemented it in the GoBees side of things, is really focus on a niche or an audience. So a lot of times brand new businesses that we're working with, or that, things that we've done, go, I can be the print shop for everybody. I want every single person in the world. I want to oh, you want us to do vehicle wraps? We do vehicle wraps. You want us to do, a million different things? We'll find a way to do it. And the real success in our business has been identifying one area where we can be exceptional, and then scaling the audience for that, us being exceptional, instead of trying to be mediocre at 500 different things.
Be a specialist,
yeah,
not a generalist.
So if you're working with like race cars, right, find a solution that makes whatever that client is look incredible, and then try to find types of that client that you can mirror, and just be like the specialist for race car printing, right? Like specialize.
The thing that jumps out to me, Jacob, this was really good advice I actually got from this guy, was don't be in a race to the bottom. I think there's a really strong pull when you're first getting started, that you need to say yes to everyone and yes to everything and price match on everything. But when you start compromising quality, and you start losing sight of your goals, your vision, and what you want your business to embody, that will, even if you make money, you will not feel successful in that. So set your prices based on very specific goals that you have. And if other printers want to make a penny where you could make $1, let them.
They usually don't last very long.
They won't last. No. Yeah.
Well, yeah, time is money, and money is something that's needed to continue a business going forward. I see Greg has a question here. What's the most popular product among the students, and why?
So we have a product called a jersey, or a shirt jersey, which is basically the exact same thing as their jersey, but it's on a t-shirt.
It replicates.
And so that, I think, is popular with students for a couple of reasons. One, the price point is about 15 to 20% what an actual replica jersey would cost them. Two, they can totally thrash it and then get another one, which is, a lot of students aren't caring for t-shirts. It's not a long-term product for them. And it's a way that they can support the athletes, again, at a lower price point. So that's going to be our most popular one on the NIL side of things, is the shirt jerseys.
That's awesome. Yeah. And before we move on to this next question, I do want to just kind of circle back that when you were talking about building that progress, right? It's the steps along the way. And if you stand at the base of a mountain and look up, you're like, there's no way I'm going to get up there, right? And just taking each individual step, then yeah, you look back and you're like, wow, we're really high up this mountain now. That's awesome. Let's see. This one is from Cynthia. How do you get into the NIL space? I imagine this is probably a little bit more complicated of a question, but just that first step, where would you tell somebody to start?
Hey, Cynthia, great question. So it is definitely a complicated question. I will say that it goes back to relationships. So we approached Oregon State University, and we said, we have a ton of students, BJ Baylor being one of them, that want to do merch. We know we've been prohibited from doing this in the past. We think we have a model that'll work. And they were like, because of the relationship we have with them, okay, try it. And that was before any of these universities. I mean, this was literally day one, week one of NIL being nationally a thing. And so we kind of test cased that out, and then we found some success there. And then we actually worked with the NIL coordinator at Oregon State to make sure that we were meeting their requirements, which were evolving over time. And then once we got a little bit more guidelines from the NCAA, then we aligned to those. And so again, it comes down to one, the relationships, because people need to trust you if you're going to be using their brand, and especially if you're going to be potentially putting their athletes in a position of peril. And then the second component of that was super good communication. So we set the tone of that relationship where we were actually informing the university of NIL changes. And that's across all of the universities that we work with. We have hey, here's a change. Here's what we're doing at Athlete Zone to make sure that we're compliant with that change. Here's how you're going to actually see that in the products or in the interactions or in the agreements that your athletes sign. And most universities at this point don't care. And the reason that they don't care is not because it's not important. It's because they trust us. They know that we're handling it, and they know that we're not going to endanger them, their brand, or their athletes. That first year or two, it was weeks of my time communicating with people and putting them at ease and letting them know that we were on top of it and everything was good. So again, we've kind of progressed into what became a very long explanation for Cynthia's question, but I would say relationships. Find a relationship with a university that's interested in having their athletes partake in NIL. Figure out what their requirements are going to be for you to be successful. Come up with an offer that you think will work for their athletes. Find a couple of athletes after the university says go for it, and then try it out.
To piggyback on that, assuming that you're a business owner, which is awesome, woo, women-owned businesses, women have the most successful NILs by far. I would say seeking out a female athlete, it's difficult for them to find representation in the textiles industry. There aren't a ton of women business owners, and there aren't a ton of women who understand marketing to other women at the level that a woman to woman will. So if you're looking to find like just that one athlete to get you started, find a badass, sorry for cursing on your podcast, find that like one hardcore gal who's like doing great things and not getting the representation she deserves. Partner with her and listen to what she wants, and it will build from there, because women are excellent communicators and they will bring their friends.
That's that relationship. You get that free flowing line of communication, and you touched on it a whole bunch there. That trust, right?
Yeah.
And that turns into much more than just a relationship. It becomes a partnership, and that's awesome. That's I think hopefully Cynthia is ready and ready to go tackle it. Yeah, great response. She says here, thank you both. Fantastic response. We got a little response here from Jacob as well. So helpful. The race to bottom is so real. And I think we see that a lot with, everybody's, I'm going to start my t-shirt business, and they never actually make money. Right. So it's a lot of providing that value, right? Providing the solutions like you guys do, like, you're branding experts. Hey, we're starting our business. We got you. Let's talk about this. Let's have that relationship instead of just that, transactional relationship, right? Of just like, okay, you buy something, cool.
Yes.
Here's money in, here's money out, but
quality should have a cost.
Yeah.
And really, usually the only way to get costs below what's reasonable is to compromise quality or to compromise your business, neither of which are sound choices.
Yeah, of course. We are way over time here, but I could keep talking with you both all day, but I know that you're busy decorators here coming off of e-commerce Black Friday, right? This is the time of year that things get busy. So I don't want to hold you up too much, knowing that you've got some to get back to. But always an absolute pleasure. I loved the visit when we came out to visit for the Heat Press transformation. I really want to get back. Both of you are just such an inspirational light, I think, to the decorating community. And I really want to thank you for joining myself here and the rest of our audience on the Heat Press for Profit podcast. Of course, thank you to everybody out there listening. And thank you to Jesse and Becca. Here at Stalls, we are always happy to help apparel decorators, whether you're just getting started or looking to get into the NIL space or looking to, grow your business. We had tons of those tips here today. So I really thank you both. But of course, head over to stalls.com as well as transferexpress.com to learn more about all of the different solutions and services and equipment that we talked about here today. But any last final advice that you would give to a decorator, or parting thoughts, or anything to add before we sign off here today?
Anyone who has additional questions is welcome to reach out to us. There's an email link on our website. We would be happy to answer questions. Truly, please shoot your shot. Please send us an email. We will be happy to share what we know and what we've learned along the way. I think, again, mentorship applies to the industry as well as outside of it.
And thank you, Dave. We appreciate you and the whole Stalls team.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you. This was fun. That's really
Yes,
good.
so much fun. And I love that you offer to be a resource for everybody, because this is the community that I'm talking about, right? Like, we all win, we lift each other up, we help each other out. And yeah, you guys are just are glowing examples of that. But with that, we will sign off here on episode 87 of the Heat Press Transformation. Thank you again, Jesse and Becca, and thank you to everybody who tuned in live, or if you're listening to this on iHeartRadio or Amazon or Apple or wherever you're listening to your podcasts. Of course, all of the Heat Press Transformation episodes are available in audio format wherever you listen to your podcast. But I want to thank you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday. And until next time, happy pressing.
Have a great one. Thank you.